Greetings, citizens! You thought 2021 couldn't possibly be any worse in these final months after we all suffered through the Cowboy Bebop live action, but buckle up, comrades, because I'm back! That's right, ladies and gents, this video marks the return to my normal programming schedule, where I will do my best to guarantee at least one video per Star Citizen milestone patch. Now, for those of you who might be a little out of the loop on what that timeline actually means, it's roughly once per quarter. Of course, the issue still is going to be, unless something noteworthy happens around the project between quarterly patches, like, I don't know, Camero getting suspended on Spectrum for bringing up hex code paint jobs during the IAE festival, and then throwing a what the fuck face after they bury his post into the deep, darkest corners of Spectrum so that they can hide their shame, it's likely going to seem a little sparse around here until milestone patches. That said, before we begin, I just want to thank all of you long hauler citizens who stuck around during my absence and kept showing up to the occasional middle of the night streams. I don't really make anything with this channel unless I'm churning out videos and constantly making content, and that immediately makes it feel like work. So truly, the greatest joy I get out of this channel is when I just get to hang out with you guys in game or bullshitting around with you guys in stream chat. Alright, I know that's a lot of intro, but I've been absent over the last 2 years, so I feel like anytime I make one of these actual published videos, I have to explain to you why I didn't come back for a few months when I went out to get cigarettes. So, now that I've gotten that out of the way, let's do this. Star Citizen 2021. For those of you who remember the very beginning of the year and the roadmap we were initially confronted with, you'll likely also remember me marveling at it. CIG's initial roadmap push for 2021 was loaded with some major features: Crusader ships, refueling, medical gameplay, salvaging. It was truly a bounce back year compared to the COVID-doomed 2020 we had just finished. Is that what we got though? Since this is the end of the year and the 3.16 final quarter update is pretty well cemented at this point, you probably already know the answer, but we're going to discuss it anyways. Cloud Imperium started 2021 off on a relative high note, releasing one of the most looked forward to ships in a long time, the Crusader Hercules, with its C2 cargo hauling variant and its up-armored M2 lift variant. These two beasts hit the sky, accompanied by the much-hyped and beloved Tonk, or the Tumbril Nova tank. Additionally, we were given 2 new ground vehicles in this quarter that no one really asked for nor really needed. The Cyclone MT, which made the base Cyclone TR absolutely pointless to own, because why have a Jeep with a machine gun when you can have a Jeep with an armored turreted machine gun and anti-air missiles? Cool, I guess. Good thing we've nailed down that whole feature creep issue. Additionally, we got the Greycat Rock DS. Because what beats one idiot driving around a planet's surface looking for ore exposed to the environment, forcing you to haul around a stupid marshmallow suit? Bringing a friend everywhere, of course. The Greycat Rock DS was slightly larger 2-person variant of the Greycat Rock because somehow somebody at CIG thought that was a great idea. Dear Chris Roberts, if you ever need concept ideas, my door is always open. How about a Ballista Spartan-sized hull with a sealed interior, working space, and ore hold next time? If you're going to try to pander to us, ground miners, at least give us something we've asked for, not a deluxe version of the most criticized mining buggy any idiot has ever thought up. In addition to the flying and driving JPEG, CIG also rolled out another new game system, their work-in-progress reputation system, which gave all the various factions of Stanton a reputation bar that needed to be leveled or lost based on your actions. There are some features in Star Citizen that really kind of feel like they're putting the horse before the carriage, and it makes you wonder, is now really the time to do that? And the reputation system definitely feels that way to me, because under the new system, you needed to grind every faction's reputation system to unlock different and better mission contracts from them, which makes the time-consuming missions of Star Citizen take just a little bit longer. But adding to this was that the reputation loss was incurred for missions that failed to complete in a game where missions are constantly bugged, fail for reasons completely out of your control, and so on. Yet, somebody at CIG thought, yeah, we should add a reputation loss to this system. On the gameplay front, there wasn't a whole lot that came with 3.13 outside of the shield rework, which turned shields from a very ugly one-sided blur to a more natural-looking shield wrap. They did add time-sensitive delivery missions, to be fair, but most of us who enjoy playing Space FedEx already hated dealing with the new box missions after the change from picking up a single package and delivering it to a single drop-off turned into picking up 3 packages either all in one location with 3 separate drop-offs or 3 different pickups and 1 unified drop-off. While this new system isn't inherently bad, the issues with the box missions, be it the new time-sensitive ones or not, is how unreliable delivering 3 boxes per mission can be, between servers always having connection issues, box missions being hazardous as hell to your life in the form of bugs that knock you over, kill you, having boxes fall through the terrain, box delivery terminals bugging out, whatever. Relying on only 1 box to turn in versus 3 was just a more dependable system. One of the other standout additions in this time frame were the new cave systems added to various planets in Stanton. And while they really didn't amount to much besides pretty holes in the ground, it was really visually impressive addition to the verse, even if the ground game of Star Citizen still unfortunately feels barren, lifeless, and more than anything, void of content. So, out of the gate, the early part of 2021 for Star Citizen wasn't exactly shock and awe type of year, but it still felt promising compared to 2020. However, when the second quarter patch dropped, things started to look a little less impressive and hopeful for the future outlook. We saw only the Connie Taurus be delivered, which despite some of the few remaining Connie owners being excited for, the Taurus was a lazy cut and paste job of the already flyable Connies, which made onlookers wonder, why did this thing constantly get bumped off of the roadmap and delayed for years when it was literally just a bigger cargo Andromeda? Maybe the ship team had at one point planned on doing more standalone modeling for the Taurus, but something fell through? I honestly can't say what happened here other than to comment that the end result was absolutely not worth the wait and the many delays the Taurus went through. On the gameplay side of 3.14, things were a little more meaningful. We saw yet another missile rework, to which I couldn't even try to recount how many times we've had one at this point. But the idea was to transition missiles and torpedoes over to the IFCS system, which seems to have done wonders for making missiles and torpedoes not look like they are being driven by tiny little people packed inside of the body cracked out on meth and Adderall. I don't do a lot of combat anymore these days, and when I do, I kind of loathe missile use because it feels cheesy and, I don't know, just not as interesting. But of the few I've fired and the many I've seen fired, I don't recall spotting any of the former derpy jank missiles that used to plague Star Citizen. So, genuine kudos to CIG for the missile change. Accompanying the missile rework to how missiles handle was the missile operator mode. No longer did we just mash the missile lock button to shoot whichever ordnance was at the top of the list, but we now had to toggle over from guns to missiles where you could now lock your target and select which ordnance you wanted to release from your available racks. This is a great change in general, but was a heaven send for ships with large missile racks of various types and sizes. Now, it would be forgivable to assume that the most talked about feature in a space combat games update would be a major rework to how missiles handle and how they're operated and fired, but you would be wrong because hands down the most talked about addition to this patch was the inclusion of Orison, the landing zone added to the gas giant Crusader. With the addition of Orison came Star Citizen's first attempt at volumetric clouds in-game versus the flat layer used everywhere else in the game. While the cloud tech is a major welcomed addition to the project, way too many backers took this addition and ran with it straight to the fucking moon with claims of, "This is the best cloud tech in the industry!" Jesus Christ, no. Please go play other games with volumetric clouds. It was a huge step up from what we had before. That is undebatable. But please, just stop. Additionally, and I'll probably get shit on for bringing this up, but hey, it isn't personal, so whatever. I also saw a large group of people who follow a certain large channel stroking off about the cloth physics of all the banners flying around on Orison's social areas. Now, to be clear, I'm bringing this up because the cloth physics circle jerk that's been going around Star Citizen is getting really damn old. After the CitizenCon presentation back in 2018, yes, that's right, 2018 is when this marvelous tech was showcased by CIG, the rabid fans have been waiting to flaunt it in-game to own the FUD-tards, and I guess when Orison came out with its little flags waving in the wind, people assumed it was cloth physics. Except it isn't. It's just an animation plane. It isn't interacted by the wind. It isn't interacted by your ship. Well, and that's probably because the ship engine wash effects that we see are probably just an effect added to has engine on. This planet/moon makes dust, and not an actual engine wash produced by actual physics. But you get my point. The rabid hype over Orison was another check box in the long list of things that were really not that big of a deal as far as additions or progress to Star Citizen went, and yet for months it was just non-stop boasts from CIG and fans alike about how much meaningful progress we've had in the last year. Okay, where's that build at? Is it like on a super secret download page on Spectrum that I don't know how to find? I'm just lost and confused. I'm wondering where you guys are seeing all of this progress. Are we so conditioned to the absolute bare minimum of content additions and substance that something like a landing site with wavy flags and puffy clouds just throws open the floodgate of celebrations and project confidence? All right, then I guess that's where we're at. Then what are you going to do? Personally, I think one of the most standout features to come in 3.14, and hold up before you get excited that I'm giving the year a win, was the new scanning mode in Ping. Under the new system, scanning was reworked to be a little more involved than simply pressing tab to open scan mode, setting your arc, and then switching back and forth periodically to look for goodies or Bambis. Most notably to veterans of the old system was that pinging your radar was a completely separated feature from scanning mode, allowing you to set off a ping while still in regular flight mode. But the greatest change to this specific feature was that pinging your radar when on a planet or moon sends out a visual ping effect which highlights terrain in the dark. Praise the illumination god! While this feature was something I sat in awe of for a moment the first time I used it, I immediately felt annoyed by this feature because it highlighted that CIG has had a method in-game right now to highlight the ground in a night vision display. You know, that thing Elite Dangerous has had for goddamn ages. And instead of it being a toggled heads-up display mode in Star Citizen allowing you to see in the dark, you can only see the terrain when shooting off a radar ping, which only displays the terrain for a few brief seconds before fading away. Why in the ever-living fuck is this not night vision, and why do we still not have this feature, CIG? Now, after 3.14, we need to talk about CitizenCon. If for some reason you're not familiar with this event, maybe you're new, maybe you're a really old veteran and stopped caring and scrubbed your brain of everything Star Citizen as you wait until we are getting gaming chips inserted into our brains, which will likely align roughly with the time Star Citizen goes out of alpha and into a release state. This event is the once-a-year marketing bonanza where CIG shows off all the hype for Star Citizen's future. In the many years history of this event, one thing has become synonymous with CitizenCon: fake demos. I'd like to imagine this is the reason that CitizenCon has become kind of a meme outside of fan circles and rebranded with an emphasis on the con part of the title, but who knows. During this year's CitizenCon, CIG showed off another look at the Pyro system. I say another look because, again, if you're new or not paying attention to the project, Pyro was first showcased through a jump point traversal back in December of 2019. And while the only thing showed off in 2019 was the space backdrop of the system, this time CIG dialed it up all the way to 1000 by showing off planet-side gameplay in Pyro. Now, I'm not going to criticize CIG for having this settlement they showed off looking like it was straight out of Star Wars or a Mandalorian episode. I wasn't really bothered by New Babbage looking like it was heavily inspired by Noveria from Mass Effect. So while hordes of people pointed out the similarity, that isn't really what bothered me. What bothered me about CitizenCon this year was the narration of this little demo. And I'll provide a timestamp in the description of this video if you'd like to watch it and see what I'm referencing in its original format. But from the very start, CIG starts talking about how amazing the clouds are, the weather systems in the background, and how great the performance is. Except, this is in yet another CitizenCon demo. You're not on a server with any real load or player base running about on top of big boy dollar gaming rigs. You're comparing apples to pork rinds. Now, don't get me wrong, the clouds looked very pretty looking, as CIG says, but talking about weather systems and how nice the lightning strikes look in the clouds means absolutely nothing when this is on a purpose-built demo and not something real and in-game. It's just like the sandstorm that went over the Javelin wreck in the last demo years ago. Do we have anything like that in-game currently? No, there's nothing like it. Yeah, we get a wind effect playing that 90% of the time you can't even see. You just hear the wind as your character gets knocked over for some reason. But it's not anything like what we actually have in-game compared to what we saw literally years ago.
By failure, it's a presentation to show it's coming. You can't shit talk them for showing off the future.
Christ, my bad. I totally forgot how CIG doesn't fake things specifically for the benefit of whipping up hype during their largest marketing event of the year, and would never ever dream of tainting the integrity of a CitizenCon demo to dupe backers and get more dollars. Hold on a sec, guys. One minute. My channel party is about to take on the Sandworm after we cleared the bandit camp, and before we go have a brewski at the low orbit relay just outside of Area 18, literally right outside of the planet's atmosphere where you can see the entire city up close. No, Glenn, don't jump off! You might EVA and die getting back on the platform for no reason. That is if you don't get hit by one of the random NPCs flying in and out of the space stations and the totally real live natural traffic coming in and out of the spaceports. Ah, life in the verse. Of course, after we've had a few drinks, we're going to jump over to Microtech and do the stealth gameplay mission with the NPC taxis. Oh wait, I forgot. None of those things I listed are things that are in the game, and all things that CIG faked for the purpose of CitizenCon demos on custom builds that they built specifically for CitizenCon. So when I say everything CIG shows off in this year's demo should be taken with the hugest 7-Eleven big gulp cup of salt you have, I cannot fucking stress that enough. Because after fluffing up the cloud visuals and landing their totally not J-Type 327 Nubian Royal Starship complete with chrome skin at the Tatooine outpost, CIG immediately starts pointing out how amazing the outpost looks. Which, before I get my hater Refundian hat on, the visuals of this outpost do look amazing. The art team did an amazing job. I'm going to criticize the shit out of this demo for a lot of things, but legitimately Star Citizen gets better and better looking every year. And the evolution of the art and design team is on full display when visiting Lorville or Area 18, and then comparing those locations to Orison or New Babbage or this outpost. That out of the way, our trustworthy CIG narrator then talks about how they wanted to have lots of tarps everywhere, and they are all using their new fancy soft tech shader so they all react to the wind of the planet. Except every single piece of cloth around this outpost is blowing everywhere with no unified direction. They're animations. They aren't reacting to any force. Now, after going through a quick merchant exchange and betrayal where CIG demonstrates why they don't get how cancerous their ground gameplay is because they run through these things with God mode on as James gets shot over and over and over and over again without so much as a med pen, CIG then restarts the demo under the circumstances that the Outpost faction is actually hostile towards you this time from the get-go. Enter the stealth gameplay. Which, I guess he must have walked 9 kilometers to the outpost so those pesky AA defenses didn't blow him out of the sky and alert everyone this time? I don't know, whatever. I apologize, these demos bring out the worst cynic in me and I really don't know how to stop it. CIG's demo player then begins picking off the guards with a sniper rifle, starting at the outermost patrol and working his way in. This is notable because all of the guards on the inner portions of the outpost are up on the rooftops looking into the distance. I guess it's a good thing that spontaneous naps mid-stride is a norm at this outpost, or those rooftop guards probably would have been really concerned about what just happened to their friend. That, or I guess maybe the AI is always dumb as fuck in these fucking demos.
But failure, this is such a trivial thing to point out, it's just a demo!
You're right, random fan, except moments after killing the guards, CIG then begins discussing the benefit of doing this at nighttime because it shows off the 24-hour life cycle of the super advanced real living AI. This is important because Star Citizen's AI are fucking stupid. Like, take any game from 15, maybe even 20 years ago, and put them against Star Citizen's NPCs, and Star Citizen, the best damn space sim ever, is going to lose. They can barely walk from one room to another without bugging out in their pathing and getting stuck on top of furniture, or just randomly T-posing in the middle of a hallway for the rest of their NPC lives. So when CIG starts claiming that they've cracked the AI barrier that they've had the entire lifespan of this project, it's a major claim we're scrutinizing, and scrutinize we shall. You see, the reason I made such a big deal at the beginning of this segment about CitizenCon demos and how CIG has a very long history of faking these demos is that it's absolutely what is happening here. This is not them displaying the life cycle of an outpost where its inhabitants go on about their day. It's CIG demoing that betrayal segment, flying up into the air, and of course you see NPCs walking out of it, and CIG claimed, "We've solved NPCs transferring from one zone to another zone." Well, Todd Pappy, if nothing else, I know I can trust you to accurately represent CIG's AI progress like Tony Z accurately represents, well, everything Tony Z talks about. Rolling on then, shall we? After proceeding inside one of the outpost buildings, our demo player arrives in a garage where the next great feature will then be displayed, but not before Pappy does a rerun of his 2019 claims of their tech, allowing NPCs to go in new areas. It's a behavior we're still working on, but we're seeing the first iterations of it. 2 years later, on a game that's been in development of 2011, and we're seeing the first iterations of NPCs being able to walk to a different area. Praise Roberts, we're on our way, boys. Anyways, back to that feature I mentioned, however. After boasting about the NPC's great new ability to go from Area 1 to Area 2, our demo player in the garage starts mantling up into the rafters of the garage. Now, I want to be clear. If Star Citizen gets the ability for players to mantle up onto an object, any object, that is above them and within reachable distance, I would be overjoyed. The game needs it. I can't count how many times being able to jump up to a ship ramp, open door, whatever, would have been a huge quality of life feature. Much less, in many cases, it would have made the difference between being stranded or stuck somewhere and having to suicide back to a starport. I really hope Star Citizen gets this function at the nearest future possible. That said, this is absolutely them putting a mantle interact point on a certain surface the same way they do with the search and rescue cave missions. More stuff purpose-built specifically for this demo that is meant to portray a different state of the game than what's actually there. Now, after 15 minutes of sneaking around the outpost to infiltrate the merchant's bedroom, we finally get a solid demo of NPCs going about their daily lives, as the merchant stands in the same exact position overlooking his bed that the player spied him through the window at the very beginning of this mission. The Elder Scrolls Oblivion, a game which was developed in 2002 and released in 2006, had more believable and lifelike AI. Look, it's fine if your AI is shit and you're still working on making a game. It's absolutely embarrassing if you're just under $500 million of crowdfunded dollars, not counting all of the private investments, and you still don't have even the slightest functioning AI, but that doesn't mean it's not acceptable. The game is nowhere near release. Squadron 42 is not near release, so it doesn't have to be cutting edge nor even good NPC behavior yet. What isn't fine, and why these demos piss me off so much, is when you have a senior developer on big convention demos telling everyone that the AI is advanced, when you have demos made to look like the game is in a further developed state than it actually is. The issue with this project's development is that this isn't just something limited to AI behavior. It's widespread across Star Citizen's development when CIG portrays Star Citizen's progress. But worse still, it is almost always accompanied during some marketing event or some other marketing material to lure in new backers with this false pretense. So that was CitizenCon 2021, another fake demo specifically built to drive hype back up from a year of incredibly underwhelming progress in the actual playable game. That isn't to say that nothing happened in Star Citizen for 2021, but for a year that started off with a roadmap full of features that have been promised to have been in development or given release dates for years now and are repeatedly pushed down the road to another time, it was a very lacking in actual milestone progress year. It is arguable, however, that what we got in 2021 were a slew of quality of life updates instead of new additions. But then the constant proclaiming by CIG and White Knight backers that 2021 was the year you really saw all the progress coming together makes no fucking sense. Did features we've had for years and years get improved or reworked? Sure, but that isn't anything new. Some things like combat systems, flight model, missiles, and so on have been reworked and improved so many times that it would be weird for anyone to be counting the number of times at this point. That doesn't equal progress, much less it's all coming together now. Oh, and before we move on to Star Citizen 315 and leave the most underwhelming CitizenCon of the project's lifespan behind, this year also marked CIG going from server meshing is going to save the world, it's soon, to server meshing might not actually save the world and it isn't going to be soon. There really aren't even words for me to stress how big of a deal it is for server meshing to again be that far off distant Jesus tech, because as CIG constantly tells backers, everything depends on it. Squadron 42 depends on it. Star Citizen getting multiple systems depends on it. One system being able to actually handle Stanton without the server slowly declining into death depends on it. Literally everything depends on it. Well then, let's get into the meat of this video, and it really was the only truly game-changing patch of the year, so we might as well discuss it. Star Citizen Patch 315. I think the most important thing to talk about in this segment is hands down servers and the recovery feature added in 315. For the first time in years, Patch 315 Live saw servers lasting hours and hours and hours. I don't know what CIG did. I don't think CIG knows what they did, but it has been insanely stable. The only thing more remarkable than the lack of server 30Ks was CIG ironically introducing a new feature to the game where if your game crashed or you were disconnected by a server 30K, you would be able to recover without losing your items or your ship's contents. How fucking amusing is it that a feature like this would be brought online during the one patch where I can't even recall having a single 30K the entire time I played 315. These two items are such a huge deal for Star Citizen if the performance and stability aren't simply a one-off. But we'll talk more about that a little bit later. So let's move on to the second most notable topic in patch 315 with the most ill-conceived, terribly timed, and horribly implemented feature of the year: Death of a Spaceman. Now, this may shockingly come as a surprise to many backers, but Star Citizen was meant to be an MMO of loss. This isn't a game where you go out into the void, get killed, and then wake up with all your gear and stuff, and all you lost were the hours it took getting out there. In Star Citizen, it has always been planned that dying would have severe consequences. Loss of ships, equipment, gear, etc. Despite this being in the design plan from the get-go, it's shocking how many people seemed caught off guard by the concept going live in 3.15 when it introduced item loss on death. I also want to get this out kind of towards the beginning before I go into the mush brain idiot thought process that thought adding this system to Star Citizen was a good idea. I have no problem with death consequences. I've played hardcore PvP MMOs like Shadowbane where you could have literally everything lost in death. I've played old school EverQuest where getting killed by a stupid fucking ping spike would mean losing hours of experience, to say nothing of the time you needed to spend doing a corpse run to recover your body. I want to lay out all of these small little samples of my MMO resume before you now to provide some proof that what I'm about to say is not Care Bear casual griping or whatever other excuse White Knight fanboys come up with to dismiss what I'm going to say. So with that, introducing item loss on death to Star Citizen, the game we have today, was the stupidest fucking idea Chris Roberts has ever had, and he's had a lot of them in this project. Star Citizen is probably the most unstable and unreliable game I have ever played. No. Don't start in with your lead paint eating Chernobyl baby brain bullshit of, but it's alpha, we're supposed to test stuff. First, we're a decade into development. I'm sick and fucking tired of simps pulling out that umbrella to hide Chris and Star Citizen from the hurtful rays of criticism. Because secondly, CIG's marketing team and legal team will sure as hell argue it's an early access title. And while they slap the word alpha on every fucking surface they can, that word means absolutely fuck all in the industry today. Lastly, every single director or senior staffer should have had the common fucking sense to realize that implementing item loss to the game we have right now means that 1. Less people are going to bother buying cosmetics now that they are pointless outside of playing roleplay or dress up in safe zones. But don't worry, CIG, I'm sure the ERP community will pick up the slack and subscribers looking for that cool flare reward, or the few people willing to buy gear from the store page. And 2, it makes your game look like a fucking idiot is helming it if they couldn't see that the state of the game does not match the mechanic you're trying to force in there just because, well, we gutted everything else a note off the roadmap. We gotta have something for the marketing to turn into a major feature to generate press and new backers. As I've said before, I'm all for this feature being in Star Citizen when the game warrants it and deserves it. The problem with Death of the Spaceman in Star Citizen for the very foreseeable future is that you can and do die in Star Citizen all the time for absolutely zero fucking fault of your own. Walking down some stairs, be a shame if you just drop dead for no reason. Oh, exiting out of an outpost airlock? Wouldn't it be hilarious if our totally awesome weather yeeted you across the map to your death for no reason? Carrying that box somewhere? Dead. Walked over that little rock in the landing site? Dead. Wake up in your hab when you log into the game? Sorry, you rolled off the bed the wrong way. You're dead. Think this planet with an atmosphere is safe to breathe? Oh, sorry, this random spot doesn't have oxygen, citizen. Dead. Walking off of that elevator? Dead. Someone bumped into you? Dead. Landed your ship on the pad? Explodey dead. Random character force reaction for no reason as you're standing on the ground that ragdolls you over and over again? Dead. Watching this video? Dead. I'm sure it felt like I dragged on with that bit a little bit, but the thing is, these aren't even all the random ways you can die in Star Citizen. Only the ways that I personally died in just patch 3.15. And every single one of those deaths is absolutely 0% fault of the player's actions. And there's no counter to it. There's no predicting it. You're just going on about your day in the verse and suddenly the game kills you just because it fucking can. Now, here's where we need to talk about the other tentpole feature of 3.15 that goes hand in hand with this stupid fucking system. Medical gameplay! This edition marks one of the first major milestone features to be added to Star Citizen since mining in patch 3.2 back in 2018. So while I want to celebrate this addition to Star Citizen, the issues with this gameplay loop are just so many. So, in essence, the concept of the medical gameplay is that your character can now be all kinds of fucked up when playing the game instead of just dead from getting hit enough to drop your health pool. Under the new system in 3.15, you can receive wounds that would, instead of killing you, simply incapacitate you to a down state, where you lay on the ground for an amount of time until bleeding out to the familiar death, respawn, hab, yay, whatever. Medical gameplay revolves around being able to treat these wounds either on yourself before you become a casualty, or treating and reviving other players who are knocked down. This gameplay loop is incentivized to work because of the newly added Death of a Spaceman mechanics, which mean fully dying will drop all of your equipment you had on a corpse. You obviously want to prevent this, which means getting some do-gooder citizen to come to your rescue, which you facilitate by using the newly created rescue beacons, which offer up a server-wide beacon mission to come and revive you for a few thousand credits. Now, before I get into the problems of medical gameplay, I want to jump back up to my point about how Star Citizen kills you just because it can. I won't bore you with rehashing that long list of the ways the game has killed me just because it can, nor will I go on about all the many other ways people randomly die in Star Citizen, but I just want to stress that the reason I made a point to drone on about them is because there are so many ways you can die randomly doing nothing dangerous at all. Then you add in ground combat, such as bunker missions with janky AI, player versus player, having your so-called friend test their Nova tank cannon near you. Whatever the cause, there are many ways to die in Star Citizen, and thanks to the miracle of medical gameplay, it's okay because you can prevent that item loss with a medic, right? Well, not really. You see, the reason I called whoever came up with the idea to implement Death of a Spaceman a bunch of mean, hurtful words is because those people are paid a very comfortable salary so they can be big brain smarties and recognize that in Star Citizen you can die for absolutely no reason at all, as well as legitimate deaths. And even if you do bring a medic or pay the credits to have someone come rescue you, as soon as they try to revive you, Star Citizen's very long-standing problem of clipping through terrain rears its head as the animations of you getting revived tries to fire off and oops, sorry, it went under the terrain mesh. Enjoy your all-expenses-paid vacation to the center of oblivion and absolutely zero fucking chance of recovering all the gear you just lost, again, from zero fault of your own. In the Star Citizen we have today and in the distant future, you can do absolutely nothing wrong. Prepare in every possible way by having a medical gun for yourself, having a friend with a medical gun, and even paying a stranger to come save you and still lose all of your gear, which depending on what you have equipped can be tens of thousands of credits, or worse, that subscriber flare item that you paid for, or that pledge store item that you bought with real money. To further stress how absolutely unready for this feature Star Citizen is, many of the methods of death that I listed earlier are straight up non-recoverable corpses. It doesn't matter if you prepared for them, it doesn't matter if you have a medic, your corpse is absolutely unrecoverable and whatever you had equipped is just gone. So even though CIG introduced medical gameplay to be the counter to loss of equipment on death, it doesn't even matter because the game is still so jank. That is to say nothing of the issues of medical gameplay itself. As an example of how unprepared CIG was for this update, when medical gameplay went out to the masses on the PTU, players were buying medical guns and using them to overdose other players inside the spaceports. Then there's the issue with medical beacons, which are transmitted server-wide, meaning anyone can pick up your cry for rescue, including that clueless new player who was across the entire system and only has an Aurora to come get you. And he doesn't even know how to really get to where you are. But don't worry, that bleed out timer is ticking on down slowly but surely. Or of course, there's the player who accepts the beacon only to come out looking for that fresh new gear from your body to stash away for a rainy day. Nothing like a free kit, right, Griefer? So, while I totally support consequences of death in Star Citizen, even a brand new player who has the mental capacity of an 8-year-old's goldfish trying to play Roblox should have been able to make the judgment call that item loss on death is a really stupid idea for the game we have now and in the foreseeable future. As a result of this new system, hordes of people have adopted a new gameplay strategy of playing with nothing but the basic flight suit. If you want gear, go kill a bunker and loot some free garbage that looks like ass so it doesn't matter when the game inevitably takes it from you for no fault of your own. If nothing else, this new mechanic and player-based reaction has at least served to point out that subscriber, store purchases, and pledge rewards should have been made into skins that can simply be applied to a base armor, weapon, flight suit, whatever. If CIG had at least thought through that far before implementing Death of a Spaceman, we would have seen a lot less pissed off players who paid money for cosmetics and happy freeloaders who could kill and loot those spenders.
But Failure, that's so much work. Do you expect CIG to totally redesign the inventory and item system just to put in skins?
Oh right, the other major feature of 315's turn then. In addition to adding the cancer that is Death of a Spaceman, CIG also rolled out the Tier 0 physicalized inventory system. Under this new system, gone are the days of managing your character's equipment via the Mobiglass. Now, you press I to open your inventories where you can equip items to your character, transfer these items to your ship or a station location, and so on. Because items are now physicalized, gone are the days of walking around carrying 15 different sets of armor and 101 different guns, attachments, and their magazines. With the inventory rework of 3.15, you carry the suit you're wearing, items which can be equipped to that armor, such as weapons or magazines, medical tools, and a backpack for storing some extra items. I'll frame it this way. Remember a few patches back when CIG introduced the feature to quickly take off your helmet with a keybind so that you could eat food and drink water for their survival sim Chris was so sure Star Citizen desperately needed? Thanks for that, by the way, Chris. It's nice to know you too suffer from needing to eat and drink water every 2 hours. I thought I was the only one until I played the update and realized my metabolism wasn't some freak occurrence, but a natural part of every citizen's body. Under the new inventory system, if you don't have somewhere to store that helmet, pressing the keybind will take off your helmet and simply put it into your hands. While the workaround for this in a station or a ship is to simply transfer the helmet over using the inventory manager to the ship or station inventory, it's just aggravating that no one designing this system thought, what happens when they press the keybind to take their helmet off and need to eat or drink, but don't have a backpack on to store their helmet? If you aren't on a ship or in a station where you can transfer the helmet, you need to drop it on the ground to consume foods. Now, do we really need to play Star Citizen Mesh Russian Roulette with our helmet just to do this stupid survival mechanic the game didn't need and, was never supposed to be forced on players? The guys making the inventory rework didn't think, what if we put like a hook point on your suit for helmets to get unequipped to when using the hotkey? Then you have the ability to quickly unequip your helmet and eat or drink still, and the weird roleplay crowd can use it as a very cool way to hip store their helmet as they run around the Armistice zones LARPing, and it also gives the 4 people left still using FOIP an easy way to show off their face as they run around the verse trying to find the other 3 people who actually bothered to turn that feature on. While we're talking about Death of a Spaceman, inventory rework, and medical gameplay, I just want to touch on something else really quick. What other idiot thought it was so cool to make players who respawn at a medical facility do so in a fucking patient gown that even a mentally stunted 4-year-old would have known players would immediately throw on the ground and switch over to normal gear? Nothing really says, welcome to our super immersive space game, like walking out of your hab or across the spaceport just to find boxes upon boxes of medical gowns littering the floor. Like, just have people spawn in the Odyssey suit for fuck's sake. Not only is it an eye cancer to see the gown boxes literally just scattered everywhere, but it's annoying as hell to have to fucking take the damn gown off, throw it on the floor, and then put a spacesuit on. Alright, we've gone on about the first-person gameplay crap. What about the ships, man? It was a very busy quarterly patch for 3.15 when it comes to ships of the verse, with a total of 6 ships going to flight ready during 3.15 and 1 new armored personnel carrier. So, because neither of us want this video to be 4 hours long, I'm going to try to summarize each new vehicle as quickly as possible while still trying to give my honest opinion of each, going in no particular order. Origin finally saw the release of the super hyped up 400i. This ship's concept was leaked forever ago, and despite somebody constantly claiming it was around the corner over and over and over and over again, it did finally show up in 3.15 in underwhelming form. The 400i is roughly freelancer size with basically none of the utility or function. The interior is the usual eye candy expected from Origin, but outside of its beautiful visuals, this ship is a total fucking waste of money. So, continuing the Origin trend, because somebody at CIG evidently thinks luxury brand equals can't do a fucking thing compared to its competitors. The 400i could briefly carry a rock in one of the PTU builds, but that was removed and sealed this ship's fate as a pretty meh boat. The Origin 400i really cemented CIG's design language for Origin. Make it look flashy, and have it do nothing. Anvil, on the other hand, surprised everybody by designing a whole new APC from the ground up. Okay, not really. CIG took an Anvil Ballista AA platform and removed the missiles and slapped a turret on top and put some jump seats in the back. There's nothing to say here, just like there's nothing to really do with it in Star Citizen's ground game. You can use it to drive up to bunkers if you wanted to, for some reason. Argo Cargo! It gets kicked off with the Raft, a small freight ship meant to haul a few of the upcoming cargo containers around the verse. And by a few, I mean 3. 3 containers. Clocking in at 96 SCU and a price tag of $125 flight ready, the Raft looks crazy cool. The interior is awesomely done, carrying on the vibe introduced by the sadly neglected mole, but functionally the Argo continues to make would-be buyers say, but why? The Raft suffers the same issue the mole does to the Prospector, but with the ironically same manufacturer MISC's lineup of freelancers. Why buy a Raft when the Max or even a base Freelancer does near the same hauling but with better defenses? Why bring a shitty fuel capacity multi-crew mole when the same crew could bring a Prospector each and shame the mole? Argo really needs to have a board of directors meeting before they end up giving Origin a run for their money as the most pointless ships in the verse. The ships look amazing for what it is, and like the 400i, the art team did a great job with the Raft, but functionally, it's just not there. The Redeemer! The long-awaited Aegis dropship turned into a gunship, and it's finally here after years! This ship has some crazy history that probably deserves its own video, but long story short, this ship's design looks like nothing else in Star Citizen because it was made during a community ship design competition called The Next Great Starship, which concluded back in 2014. So, to say people were long waiting for this ship to go flight ready is a huge understatement. The issue now is, what did you want from this ship? Did you want an odd duck dropship with some turrets? Or did you want an odd duck turret platform with some ship? The interior of the Redeemer is very familiar to Vanguard owners with living quarters downstairs that look very similar to the Vanguard, and the turret stations as well as the jump seats upstairs, because when you're landing your strike force in your space hind, of course you want the soldiers to swarm over a single ladder going downstairs and then run through your living area and off into battle. I'll be honest, the Redeemer was never a ship I was super fond of, and honestly, after 8 years of Chris tinkering with the design, it honestly feels like it came out worse for it. The firepower is lovely, I suppose, but the interior is just total ass backwards parade of, help me, I don't know what I'm doing, what does the boss want from me? Oh, man. Moving on to the ship I've probably been most excited for since 2017 when I realized we weren't going to see the Idris in our hangars for at least a decade. The Crusader Industries Hercules A2 gunship. I hope you caught on to the snide in that because this is going to be short and dirty. What a fucking miscarriage of justice. Holy shit. CIG did everything short of slap an AC-130 in the marketing brochure, and what we got was just a fucking travesty. The interior is basically a remix of the Hercules M2, but with all the fucking turret stations. Lots of turrets, you say? Maybe it is a Spectre gunship, a sci-fi legend. Oh right, except all the weapons are terrible. Here we have the Redeemer that goes flight ready and gets 2 fat, chunky, double size 6 mounts with its own special Gatling cannons, and the Ares gunship? Enjoy your mix and match of Omnisci and Bearing manufactured laser cannons. CIG couldn't be asked to make the A2 proper ballistic howitzers for ground suppression, so it just threw a ton of garbage on the belly and called it good. But it's a bomber, you say? I mean, it isn't, but sure, it can drop bombs. In the A2, the aft section of the cargo hold has been retrofitted to drop bombs in the form of cluster bombs or the giant Star Citizen version of a Moab. The giant bomb is a sight to behold and the explosion is super gratifying, but the bomb's falling speed is so slow a geriatric pirate could briskly walk out of the blast radius on his walker as it falls. Add to that the many memes of people shooting the bomb and killing the A2 which released the ordnance, and it's pretty clear this ship couldn't deserve its $750 price tag less if Chris tried. Okay, so literally none of the Hercules besides the C2 variant lived up to my hopes and dreams. It's okay, we have the Ares, right? Here we go. The Ares Starfighter. The Ares Heavy Fighter was sold in 2 variants. The ballistic Gatling gun toting Inferno, which if Hercules A2 was CIG milking us AC-130 fanboys, the Inferno is coming after those A10 wallets. The Inferno came in that beautiful black honeycomb body wrapped alongside a Gatling cannon, so chonk and sexy it makes my girlfriend wet every time I spawn it, and she hates Star Citizen. What isn't to love about this ship? Oh right, that it came out just after CIG reworked combat yet again and gave ballistic weapons a miserable ammo, except the spread on the S7 is so fucking atrocious, you're going to be rationing every bullet. That's to say nothing of the slow as fucking snail projectile speed on these shotgun spread bullets. Oh right, and Chris Roberts still doesn't understand Gatling guns and slapped the usual spin-up time on them because video games in Hollywood, bruh. You know what really makes this thing a pile of dog shit though? It sounds like a whimpering bitch when it shoots, and CIG didn't even give it explosive rounds. How fucking dare you, sirs? Okay, it's okay. My Crusader fanboy identity is really suffering right now. I'm kind of on the verge of having a mental break, but it's okay. We got one goodish cargo hauler until the Hull series gets put in the game and invalidates the Hercules as a space trucking ship, but we still have the C2 as king of the atmosphere transport game, well, until the newly reworked Bando Merchantman gets put in the game, and since it can carry a small city around and go planetside, and yeah, the Ares Inferno ended up being an overhyped pile of shit, but we have the Ion, guys, we have the Ion. The Ares Ion came with a giant fucking size 7 energy cannon from the Bearing M-Line series, Big Daddy Goku being reported for duty. Pitched as a much more marksman variant of the two Ares models, the Ion hit the PTU with a cannon that melted faces and gave you that sense of big gun fuck shit up, greatly lacking in the current Star Citizen verse. And I think one of the reasons this ship was so hyped by so many of us is because cannons have been the redheaded stepchild bitch of combat for a long time now. After patch 3.4 and prior to the Ion, nothing in the cannon offerings has felt like a cannon. They just feel like really shitty repeaters. Star Citizen has been dominated by ballistic metal hurricanes and Star Warsy laser repeaters for what feels like an eternity now to us cannon fans, and the Ion felt like a chance to relive the days of slow firing, high alpha cannons. I know many players miss the days of engaging many kilometers out and hoping to see a target prediction shot be rewarded with a plume of blue-red death. And the Ion was that hope, at least until it hit the 315 PTU, where the range was abysmal and the velocity so slow that if an Ares pilot managed to hit a target beyond 2.5 kilometers, they should immediately Alt F4 Star Citizen and go buy a lottery ticket, or feel really bad for killing some poor kid or senile old man who didn't know what they were doing as they sat stationary and oblivious. Now, if the snail-paced projectile and shit range weren't enough during the 315 PTU, absolute lemmings kept getting killed by the Ion. This made the light fighter lemmings, you know, the guys who can't actually dogfight and have leaned hard on the server desync coupled with the agility and small hitboxes of ships like the Arrow and the Gladius, some really sad pandas. So all of these Top Gun fighter aces ran over to Spectrum and showed CIG on the doll where the Ion touched them, and not having any of CIG's masters of dogfighting be outdone, CIG turned the Ion's size 7 cannon into a fucking repeater by dumping the alpha and increasing its fire rate. The exact opposite of what anybody wanted from that concept, nor what the damn cannons are a weapon category for in the first place. The outrage on the PTU forums was real, and CIG realized how stupid the change was, explaining they were just testing it for balance, and that they have no problem with a light fighter getting obliterated should they get hit by a size 7 cannon. Ah, the universe set right, as it should be. Or was it? You see, a hefty chunk of the real PvP community in Star Citizen bounced from this project years ago. What Star Citizen has today are try-hard monkeys flinging poop at each other on a broken combat system strapped to a garbage flight model. While there are absolutely some good pilots out there, CIG has catered year after year to the casual tryhard who doesn't want to learn what got him killed, the pilot who wants to have every mudded out component in their little light fighter and they think,
this means I can kill everything I come across.
And they have, for years now. For years now, it has blown my mind that the tryhard crowd in light fighters constantly complains anytime they aren't the top ship in the game, and yet they've never stopped to think, does light fighter mean I shouldn't be going head on to a heavy fighter? Nah. It just means I'm an agility main, so I should still erase them with my totally not power creep weapons, and my ship should be more than agile than their ship, so not only can they not kill me before I get near them, but once I'm stuck inside their maneuverability bubble, I get to press my win buttons. Combine this mentality and combat balance with the once broken auto gimbals, and it bred a super lazy, entitled light fighter community in Star Citizen, who suddenly with the introduction of the Ion found themselves on the receiving end of a gun that could actually delete them before they closed the gap. Did this strange turn of events mean that light fighters resorted to avoiding fights with the Ares, or learning to play to their strengths when trying to jump in Ares? That would require too much level of skill and competence long since departed of this community. And hey, you're a light fighter main, bruh. You don't know the meaning of a fight I shouldn't take. The concept of multiple light fighters trying to overwhelm a heavy isn't even something your brain is capable of hearing or reading. You're literally hearing dead silence right now. You solo YOLO tip of the spear against the entire universe, majestic motherfucker. So, fast forward to current day, Star Citizen Patch 3.16 is currently on the PTU, and CIG immediately nerfed the Ares cannon back into a repeater. And despite endless amounts of what the actual fuck syndrome is wrong with you, questions from the community, CIG has yet to even acknowledge it despite every single 3.16 PTU feedback thread being flooded with comments on it. Good job, Light Fighter kids. You've cried your way into keeping Star Citizen combat the same boring Light Fighter dominated cancer fest it has been for years now, versus having to learn how to change how you charge headlong into every target before you. Now, to be fair, I know a few Light Fighter pilots who acknowledge the Ares isn't a problem if you haven't been eating crayons and licking batteries for the bulk of your life, so to them, good on you for being a proper sport, you cancerous shit-flying bastards. Do you. Now, if you can't tell, all that pent-up former Vanguard jock depression sort of bled into the Ares Ion for me. I miss the days when Heavy Fighter actually had the guns to fit the label, and CIG didn't balance every damn combat ship in the game with, well, it's all gotta be competitive to each other, punch above the weight class, am I right? Ah! So, to finish up my summary on the Ares, both the Inferno and the Ion, I wouldn't buy them. The price is decent, Star Citizen things considered, but they're going to be neutered and tossed into the wait for armor and stuff like some year bin, you know, just like so many other ships. So just go take that money and buy 2 Arrows or Gladiuses so you can hot swap between insurance claims. That would be a much wiser use of your money. So now that we've talked about the 3.16 Ion nerf, we might as well address the rest of the patch of 3.16 rolling out shortly to be the last patch of 2021 before Star Citizen ends up its year and CIG goes on a holiday for the rest of, well, 2021. Coming soon to a verse near you, we have the Grav Bike rework, which is aimed at making Grav Bikes finally not suck the fat pee-pee that they've been going to town on since CIG removed the hover flight mode from them. While the current state of this rework seems mixed, it is still in PTU and subject to improvement before it hits live. However, I'm finding it difficult to get excited over the 2 whole Grav Bikes we have in game, and the 3rd that's been in concept for fucking years now without a trace, especially when the walking dad joke Jared props it up as the milestone feature for this patch. It's really kind of depressing. Oh wow, Grav Bikes don't explode every time I go over a tiny rock now? Oh, they don't go into the atmosphere every time you get off of them? Wow, 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 wow. Truly, this is a centerpiece feature for a record-breaking year finale. Aside from the Gravlev bike rework, the cornucopia of features coming in 3.16 amounts to laser trip mines because, yeah, totally, why not? We needed that. And Jumptown 2.0. The most cringy attempt of a company to co-opt a moment in history that I can ever recall. Again, if you're new to Star Citizen, which many are, or you're a vet who wasn't around during Jumptown to get the reference, I'll do my best to summarize quickly, but I might rant a bit here. Jumptown is the name of the drug lab on the moon Yela orbiting Crusader. When drugs were introduced to Star Citizen, there was only one place you could go to buy them. Jumptown. Well, way back in our olden golden times, you didn't have all these credit farms like churning bounty missions to make millions in few hours, and we had very few box delivery missions and they paid like shit, and cargo options were pretty limited as well, and could really only be exploited by those of us who had spent money on big haulers because ship purchases weren't in game then. You see, when CIG released patch 3.0 back in 2017, it killed the game. Frame rates on average and even high-end systems plummeted to mid-teens to even single digits. It got so bad that CIG had high-end gaming rigs sent out to their community mouthpieces so that they could pretend the game wasn't a total fucking dumpster fire disaster, because every time these daily streamers jumped on Star Citizen, it was non-stop embarrassment of performance. Fast forward a few patches to patch 3.3 and CIG implemented client-side object container streaming, and suddenly all the frame rate came rushing back. Where you once struggled with 11 frames per second, you were at a steady 30 to 40. Go up into space and you even saw 70 plus. This created a massive influx of returning players, and it just so happened to coincide with the drug lab on Yela selling them sweet, sweet space drugs at huge profit margins. Now, back in 3.3, the profit margin on selling drugs purchased at Jumptown and sold at the nearby neighboring Grim Hex was huge. There was literally nothing else in the game that even came close to the kind of money you could make from drug running out of Jumptown. But it was the only lab in the game, and everyone wanted it because there were limited quantities sold per refresh. This meant that everyone was on the way to Jumptown. Normal cargo runners flocked to Jumptown to make those huge payloads. Criminals went to Jumptown to listen to the rage in global chat when they killed a fully loaded trader. White Knights of Justice went to Jumptown to try to kill the griefers. You had solos trying to sneak in and run a quick trip of drugs. You had org pre-mades trying to lock down the lab for just their traders. You had lawful good pilots banding together to try to hold the lab so the Care Bears could run drugs. I mean, every type of Star Citizen player you have ever met was either at Jumptown or selling at Grim Hex. If you went to either location, somebody was killing somebody for drugs. Jumptown became this emergent phenomenon born out of a natural funnel due to 1. Lack of other sources of drugs, 2. The insane profits possible from these trade items, 3. Absolutely everything else in Star Citizen was fucking terrible, 4. A huge influx of players because 3.3 finally made the game playable to all again, 5. Combat was still in a fairly decent spot, and this was the quarter before CIG murdered the flight model with its rework. And 6, you couldn't scan out a freighter from space, and there were no markers to take you down to Jumptown. You had to know how to visually reference the moon and fly the entire way down wondering when the dots were going to start popping up on your radar. Star Citizen was a very, very different game when Jumptown happened, and it has become a moment in the history of the game that is universally hailed by anyone who was around during Jumptown as one of, if not the peak moment in Star Citizen's current life. So, when CIG comes off of an incredibly disappointing 2020 and rolls through a fairly depressing 2021, only to finish off the year with an attempt to force an event and recreate one of Star Citizen's most memorable points in history, it just feels kind of cringy. Not only do the circumstances which created Jumptown no longer exist, but it just feels like trying to force a recreation of Jumptown in some sort of desperate misdirect to distract away from the fact that 2021 was one of the most disappointing years we've had in terms of progress in a long time. While CIG can absolutely claim it was a record-breaking year for their marketing team, on the player experience side of the project, it was pretty dismal. We saw a roadmap loaded with features that have been long promised, many of them years overdue, only to be gutted to bits. The ships that went flyable this year were nothing short of disappointing, save from visual quality. The only ship worth getting an honorable mention was the Hercules C2 cargo hauler, and that thing is living on borrowed time now that the Misk Hull freighters are coming around the corner, and the merchantman is bloating its way to power creeping everything in the distant future. And when the Liberator carrier comes around, as it serves as a dropship fighter carrier cargo hauler, since its landing pads are on the outside and its 400 SCU of cargo capacity does not take up its ground vehicle space like the Hercules. I mean, I get it, the Liberator costs more than the Hercules M2, but Jesus Christ, it does everything and it does it better. It's become very clear that Star Citizen ships are being mapped out the same way World of Tanks or War Thunder has their tiers, and you have every incentive to move up the ladder sooner than later. And it just feels like a fucking shame. CIG constantly flaunts how many flyable ships they have, but it never seems to want to address the fact that the vast majority of them are just throwaway stepping stones to the better option above. Well, that's it. That is Star Citizen 2021. If you haven't really checked in since this time of year in 2019, you really haven't missed much. There have been a lot of quality of life reworks, facelifts and mechanic tweaks, and there have been some new mechanics added to old things. And CIG has added some filler to an otherwise empty meal, but overall, if you were playing Star Citizen in 2019, you were more or less playing the same game that we have today. Now, as grim as that might sound, I want to take a minute to talk about the current state of the game, regardless of patch number. I have spent a lot of time and many years now saying that one of the biggest issues I have with Star Citizen and the number one wall CIG needs to break down before I would ever consider suggesting somebody I don't like plays Star Citizen, much less anybody I have nothing against, is the server performance. It has been years of Star Citizen servers crapping out and dying out of nowhere. No warning, no way to avoid it, no recovery. You could be 5 minutes into logging into the game, or you could be in the middle of a mining trip and you'd spend an hour gathering up ore, and then the server would decide it was time to give up, quit on life, and it would crash, giving everybody connected the dreaded error 30K. That meant everything you were doing was lost. If you were in the middle of hauling a huge load of cargo, gone. If you were out mining, your shit's lost forever. If you had just finished that stupid annoying run from the Habs to the tram to the spaceport and just sat down in the cockpit of your ship, boom, back to start, chump. That was 10 minutes at least of your life you literally just threw away. However, in patch 3.15, something finally happened. Along with the introduction of the Crash Disconnect Recovery System, stars aligned, Chris Roberts sacrificed the correct amount of Cylon Space Trek kittens, some intern at CIG deleted the right string of spaghetti bloat code, or CIG throttled how many people could be on a server. I don't know, but whatever they did, I hope they continue because for the first time in years, it is possible on 3.15 Live right now to log into a server and be on that server all fucking night. The current live server performance is so remarkable and abnormal to Star Citizen that even CIG has acknowledged it by saying they were opting to throw out their internal 3.16 build and instead maintain 3.15 but transferring the features of 3.16 into the current 3.15 build. While I joke about the means by which CIG managed to get the servers working this well, and it's only for lack of knowing what exactly happened to achieve what we have now, I just want to say hats off to you guys over there. Whatever you did, please keep doing it, because this has been the first time in years I've been able to set aside an entire night to play Star Citizen and actually remain on the servers for as long as I want and actually be in there enough to catch a glimpse of the game that might someday come to form. While patch 3.15 is not without Star Citizen's typical slew of bugs, issues, and to say nothing of the death system, the playability of the game is absolutely fucking unheard of as it sits right now. If CIG can manage to port 3.16 over to Live without destroying this current stability, Star Citizen will, for the first time in my memory, close out the year on probably the most stable and playable client we have ever had. I was going to get this video together originally a few weeks ago, and I knew when I started putting it together that the one thing I absolutely wanted to make sure I talked about was how insanely well Star Citizen was running in the current patch. But I hesitated on finishing this video because even as I recorded this, I'm terrified of finally praising the state of Star Citizen servers and the playability, only to have 3.16 end up going on the live servers right before Christmas, and it all falls apart again, and somebody sees this video and goes,
What the fuck? You told me Star Citizen was working, FTR.
As I said before, I have spent years insisting that I would never encourage somebody to get into Star Citizen when CIG couldn't even provide a reliable gameplay experience with their servers, having a will and lifespan of their own, never knowing when they were going to quit out and crash. And I've always thought to myself, if CIG can convince me, I'll gladly support and celebrate the achievement and stability. And I always hope that maybe because of who I am and how outspoken I am in criticizing the project, if I finally said, guys, CIG did good, this is really playable, it would hopefully mean more than just another shill saying,
This patch is the best patch we've seen so far because every patch is the most record-breaking, amazing patch, so much progress, best patch.
So to be blunt, Star Citizen isn't in a great place progress-wise, and it's incredibly underwhelming that I could mostly ghost 2020 and 2021 and literally feel like I'm mostly playing the same game I was in 2019. I mean, are many things improved? Absolutely. But like I said before, it's an improved or reworked version of what I was doing in 2019. Star Citizen still feels incredibly hollow. The shell of the game looks fucking beautiful, and I feel like the game just gets better and better looking every year. But it's like biting into the most amazing looking donut you've ever seen in your life to find out that the filling is chalk. Every year feels like a bite out of the same bland pastry, but every year the baker says, well, I've added this to the topping and sprinkled a little bit of this and that into the mix. And I find myself noting the improvement, but I'm also trying to ignore the disappointment of the same filling year after year. Now, I want to be clear. This is not the video where I change my views or put on the Team Roberts jersey and suddenly start pimping my referral code. Although if you want to dive into Star Citizen for the first time, I'm cool with you using it. I like free stuff as much as the next guy. My point is, Star Citizen Live build, as of today, is incredibly playable compared to years of past server performance. I am by no means telling you to go take your Christmas money and buy an Idris, or to even spend a few $100s on Star Citizen. However, if CIG can manage to keep this stability rolling over the next few quarters, I may legitimately have to start thinking about how I want to draft my Team Roberts video. So, while I think it's fair to be disappointed in hearing me say these things, I feel like it's incredibly important to give Star Citizen and CIG the credit where it's due. And while I have every intention of continuing to criticize elements of the development or the game that I disagree with or don't like, I've tried really hard to be more relaxed and balanced in how I judge the project, be less personally insulting to the development team, and while I haven't quite hit the point of not calling Chris names, I'm at least making an effort, right? Although this channel remains a hobby of mine and I don't really take it super seriously, like I have no plans to try to be a content creator, and despite basically sabotaging it by taking prolonged breaks across 2020 and 2021, somehow there's still thousands of you here, and I feel like I owe it to every one of you who has supported the channel over the years to be as fair as I can be to this game. I obviously have biases. I've been a backer of this project since the very first years, and that carries a lot of baggage, from poor behavior by CIG and volunteer mods to absolutely toxic fan community of the midlife crisis years of Star Citizen. And I still think there's a lot of twats out there pretending to be impartial shepherds of the project, luring in new backers without an honest representation of the state of the project, so they can, go to town on their happy shill meals with a side of McFuck themselves for being shitty people more concerned about being interweb famous than making any kind of meaningful change to the project or holding CIG accountable for the many, many, many fiascos CIG has had over the years. That said, I guess basic ass bitches gonna clout chase. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click the bell, sign up for my Patreon, use my referral code, and donate your firstborn. Love ya. In all seriousness though, I feel like in the last few years I've done a closeout video for the year. I usually take a sizable segment to sort of speak my mind on things, and with how inactive I've been over the last 2 years, I feel like if ever there was a year where it's due, it's this one. Covering Star Citizen is kind of like a double-edged sword for me. On one side, I want the game to be amazing, and it's hard to see things get squandered or see mechanics I don't agree with hit live, things that were promised and get tossed aside, watching CIG absolutely turn into the company that is the very embodiment of all the things that they say they weren't going to be and why you should back Chris. When their marketing is every bit as predatory or worse than AAA publishers, their communication can be as one-sided and tone-deaf as plenty of the despised studios. And 10 years on, it feels like I've spent the majority of those years playing the same game despite constantly being told that the content floodgates are about to open. There's so much we don't see. Just wait for the Jesus tech or the new tools for the new tools that we were working on when we told you to just wait for the other new tools the first time we needed the new tools that we're going to release, the floodgates of content. I think people honestly either don't believe me or forget that this channel is literally something I do for my own enjoyment. I don't have a stream schedule. I know how to work YouTube's algorithm and choose to instead upload when I feel motivated to make something. My point is that I'm not a content creator, I'm a backer. This channel is my opinion on the company, on the project, on the progress, on the mechanics, on whatever it is I get motivated to discuss. A few months back, I made a snarky video contradicting Morphologist's video over his Hercules review. And when that went live, the amount of comments I got saying, "What's the point of this video?" or "Was this really necessary to make a video over?" No, it wasn't, and there wasn't a point. I was passionate about the Hercules concepts, and he said something I didn't agree with, so I made a video about it, because the mood struck me. So, on the first edge of the sword, it's really demoralizing to see the project in a state you're not happy with and to say, yeah, I'm going to go make content about that. So, I haven't. I wasn't dying of COVID. I didn't lose my job and couldn't afford the internet. I didn't get my hands broken in a press. My girlfriend didn't make me give up gaming or Star Citizen. I just found that Star Citizen hasn't been in a playable or enjoyable state. So, I've spent my time playing other games and hanging out with the channel community on our Discord. If the first edge of the blade is being a backer and just not being happy with what is there, the other edge of the sword is the community around the game. I have such a love-hate relationship with this project's community. Like, I've met tons of really awesome people through Star Citizen over the years, and I have a ton of fun playing with them when I do get on to check up on the project or get material for a video I want to make. But Jesus Christ, I cannot stand a large chunk of backers who cannot fathom that anything but universal praise for the game, the project, the company developing it, their marketing, misleading concepts, whatever. If you're not stroking it to the dream nonstop, you're human garbage. Now, I'm a big boy who's capable of acting like an adult. I don't have a problem admitting when I'm wrong, and I've never had an issue with changing my perspective on an issue regardless of how passionate I felt about it. So with that in mind, it's not a secret that I totally lost faith in Star Citizen and Cloud Imperium when Chris spent the year leading up to 3.0's anticipated release telling us that it was delayed for a year so that the content could be polished to his quality standard, only to have 3.0 come out as a fucking empty crater of a shell of the content that was promised that they were saying was already done. And it was an absolute trash heap of a patch in terms of quality, stability, on and on and on. When that happened, I took a hard 180 on my views of Chris, CIG, Star Citizen, and looking back as an older, hopefully wiser FTR, I kind of regret the way I took it. I shit all over the project, insulted Chris, Sandy, Devs, the works. To be clear, every single one of my grievances were justified, but the way I did it was incredibly disrespectful. Instead of outlining the issues, failings, lies, and problems with the project, I just threw my middle finger up and said fuck you to everything, versus had I structured it better, it might have made a difference in a time when the project still had some shell of community-driven development and possibly shaping of what Cloud Imperium would one day turn into. Now, I mean, do I think I would have single-handedly changed Star Citizen? Of course not. But my very outspoken and hostile criticism of Star Citizen happened at a time when backers were already head in the sand towards criticism because of the Derek Smart saga. And I'm sure I only helped to drive the wedge that much further between backers and the ability to have criticism and optimism exist peacefully on Spectrum and the subreddit. And so while I've tried to work on myself and how I handled things on this channel over the last few years, I've definitely not been perfect, nor will I likely ever be. But I feel like I've reached a much more balanced and fair outlook on the project, which I know some people will probably hate because they just want me to go off the hinges on Star Citizen or CIG. And while I'm all for giving CIG shit when they deserve it, I like to think that I at least make an effort to be more mature about it than I used to be. Which should probably lead me into the yearly apology segment. I'm sure over the last year I've probably said some mean shit to CIG members, and I may have had an axe to grind over something in the game or something with the marketing, but whatever I might have said, there was probably a better way to have said it. Now these aren't ever meant to be a, hey man, my bad, I called you a fuckface, but sorry, so we can be bros now? So much as like an attempt to let CIG employees who do see these videos know that I do think about the things I say about the developers or the project, and there's usually a handful of comments I end up regretting making, even if the point I was trying to make was one that I would stand by today or wanted to make. I can definitely be an asshole, and while it might be something I try to improve on yearly, I know the devs can take things very personally, and that's definitely not what I mean to do, unless you're Tony Z. I know this is supposed to be my confessional and repentant segment, but fuck, I can't stand that dude. And I mean, honestly, if I was at a bar outside SitCon or something and ran into Chris, I'm sure we probably wouldn't like each other either, so probably that too. You know, to be fair, I could probably still work on the insults toward those two also, since pointing out their respective issues in the project should be enough without calling Tony, oh man, some habits are just really hard to kick. Getting back to the track of Star Citizen, I honestly feel like the glimpse we got of a functioning game in the form of patch 3.15 is a huge step forward. While it was absolutely a letdown to see so many features fall off the roadmap over the year, it was so refreshing to for once be able to log into Star Citizen and say, you know what, I've got 4 hours to kill today. I'm going to spend them on Star Citizen and actually be able to do it. Or to get a big group of channel members together and go fuck around in Star Citizen and not constantly have to go back to the main menu after a 30k and relaunch, or having members of the group constantly crashing or having other issues. I'm sorry, Archer, I can't help you with flying into stationary objects and somehow always finding every possible way to get yourself killed in Star Citizen. You're the outlier, bud, so I'm not counting you. For the most part, though, over the last month, if I ever got the itch to play a space game, I booted up Star Citizen, and I actually got to play it for however long I felt like, instead of having that itch grinded down bit by bit with every 30k. Sure, I got plenty pissed when I'd log in and my subscriber gear I had logged out with is just gone. My body's naked, or my body would fall through the terrain mesh and I'd have to go rebuy and equip everything. But the fact that I could actually play Star Citizen for the first time in years without constantly worrying as I'm mining in the rock or doing bounties that at any moment I was going to get kicked off the server and waste the time I was putting into the game was such a, just crazy refreshing experience. Now, I think it's premature for me to flip over to recommending people try Star Citizen until CIG produces this kind of stability patch after patch after patch and can prove that 3.15 isn't just a one-off. But if you're sitting on the fence about getting into Star Citizen and you're lacking anything to play right now, and you're waiting for 2022 titles to start coming down, or maybe you just want a space game and Elite isn't your cup of coffee, fuck, this might be the patch to check it out. If nothing else, you have 30 days after purchasing a game package to request a refund. So if you really, really want to back Star Citizen and see what the game is like when the servers actually work, even if worst case scenario, it all goes to hell when 3.16 goes live before the holiday, you can still refund out if it's not your cup of tea, which, to be fair to Star Citizen, is a fuckload more generous than Steam is these days. Again, this isn't me promoting Star Citizen. The project still has issues up, down, left, right. I have major issues with the company, policies, and behaviors, and progress is still barely low crawling along the floor. But I remember the first few days of playing 3.15 and constantly thinking, fuck, I have to make sure I give them credit for this patch because it's honestly deserving. Alright guys, that's it for this video. I know it rambled on for a while, and I know the tone was probably mostly negative criticism despite the whole soapbox moment on the end there, so odds are most won't have made it this far, so thank you for bothering to listen to all of this. I know it's a little scattershot and all over, but I felt like because of how absent I've been this year, I really wanted to spend a little bit more time on the end of this video instead of trying to trim it down all over the place. And I know when 2021 started and people asked if I was going to start covering Star Citizen again, I said I'd wait and see how the roadmap panned out. And while that was pretty disappointing, I think the biggest contributing factor to why I didn't spend a lot of time on it this year was because the servers were just always fucked up and it felt like a waste of my time to try to get into Star Citizen. So while 2022's roadmap is once again taunting us with major features and gameplay already before even the last 2 quarters of next year or even on the map, I feel like I'm actually motivated to play and cover Star Citizen again for the first time in, God, at least 3 or 4 years. And it's crazy to think that. But with that, I want to close by thanking you all for supporting me over the years. This channel would be absolutely nothing without you. So while the holidays are looming, I hope you have an amazing time with your loved ones. I hope you get to spend some time relaxing with the people you care about and enjoying the season doing whatever it is you love. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you again next year on a more regular basis. It's been too long, and while I honestly don't regret taking time away from Star Citizen, I definitely missed all of you. So from the FTR family, have a great holiday and a happy new year, and I will see you in the verse, citizen.